Welcome to Hockey Unfiltered, the second episode. We weren't planning to do it for a while, but obviously some breaking news led us to do an episode today. I am forever the sidekick, Dylan Waugh. I'm here with Ken Campbell, and we are going to get to the big news of the day, the World Juniors, talk about the Olympics, talk about the NHL, all of the dominoes of repercussions that are happening from this. So stick around and hopefully answer all your questions. So before we get started, we should definitely mention that we are socially distanced today. So you might notice that the cameras and everything aren't quite as well set up. Bear with us as we grow to serve you, but we're about 12 feet apart and the doors are open in the studio. So we're all good. Ken, how are you?
Well, I've been better, Dylan. I've been better. Hockey hasn't been very, very good to me or anyone else in the last little while, and that's why we're here. Yeah. I mean, we were all set to podcast on January 1st after the preliminary round of the World Juniors going into the quarterfinal games. We were going to do our big podcast then, and it was all great. And I was sitting at home today looking forward to watching games, and now here we are. And I think it's important for us to weigh in on some of the things that are going on, with just some terrible things that are happening. This pandemic is just, and I mentioned it in one of the blogs that I recently wrote. I mean, lockouts aside, which the NHL brought on completely themselves, I don't think hockey's been in this kind of a crisis since World War II. Yeah. And I really don't. I can't think of anything else that has brought hockey to its knees more than this has. And when I say hockey, I don't mean just the NHL. I mean, obviously the World Juniors being canceled, right? The World Women's Under 18s. Yeah. Where is everything going? The Olympics. I just have to think that at some point, the precedent's already been set. Tokyo took a year to get things together, and then they did it in 2020, whatever. Yeah. 2021 instead of 2020. I got to think that at some point, they've got to be thinking that maybe it's not the best thing to hold an Olympics now, and which would be great for the NHL and for their players and for everyone, because then they would be able to go next year, conceivably, unless, a year ago we all thought we were going to be beyond this by now, and we're not. So, to
that point, I'm not a doctor or an epidemiologist by any stretch of the imagination, but Moderna did say that the mRNA type vaccine platform was very adaptable and could be presumably adapted to the Omicron variant early in 2022. So, the idea when they postponed Tokyo and it didn't actually have to be postponed all that long, that seems very possible when you consider the fact that I think that Tokyo happened in no small part because of the mass rollout of vaccines. Yeah.
And two, I think, we haven't seen the worst of Omicron yet either, right? No. From what I've been able to gather, and I talk regularly with an epidemiologist about these things, because he kind of helps guide me through a lot of the obstacles here and a lot of the things that I don't really know anything about. But the numbers are probably going to grow in January and February, and the Olympics are right in that wheelhouse, right? Yeah. So you're going to be right in the thick of
the worst of it.
The worst of it there. Yeah. And, if you're testing every day, you're going to keep coming up with positives. And right now I've been told that the positivity rate in tests in Ontario is anywhere between 20 and 25%. That's huge. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So either you stop testing people and you whistle in the dark and hope everything turns out okay. Or if you keep testing people, you're just going to the numbers are going to keep going up. And that's not good, So, man, this sucks.
The idea of not testing has come up again and again because the NFL, I think, has is laxed their testing protocols, and
they're almost like it doesn't exist. Right?
Yeah. So the idea of not testing has come up again and again, but it's just like in WWF, the old wrestling federation, in the 90s when they're like, we don't have a doping problem, but they of course never tested for doping.
Right. Right.
Looking at these guys, you're going, are you sure you don't have a doping problem?
See, and the thing is that, I mean, if you look at it in isolation, you're looking at highly fit, very healthy athletes who have been double vaxxed, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at it in that context, it's like, well, okay, so they get the sniffles, or some of them don't even exhibit any symptoms at all.
Right.
So what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is we don't live in a vacuum, right? I mean, these people have to go home to children and to wives and families and to parents and grandparents, and they've got to be out in the community. So, I mean, we don't live in a vacuum. So we have to kind of deal with this and maybe take our lumps. And I get the NHL trying to get in as many games as they can. I get the World Juniors trying against hope that they could maybe pull this off and get it to the finish line. I get that. But there's a reality to deal with too.
Going back to the World Juniors for a second, I wanted to talk about what probably could have been done to prevent this.
Yeah.
First of all, I thought it was bonkers. Like I just assumed, like, maybe I'm just a moron here.
Oh, you are.
Well, okay.
Not for this reason.
That notwithstanding, I just assumed that they were in a bubble.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe what I was reading today.
Right.
About the anecdotes taking place in the hotels. I assumed that they were in a bubble. How could they have thought, hey, let's do this with the most, difficult variant we've dealt with so far, and essentially, I mean, roll it back to day one, nobody's vaccinated, right? Other than the managing symptoms, roll that back to day one. This is not preventing you from getting Omicron, which is why we're here across the room from each other.
Right.
And I can't believe that they did this without considering a bubble situation.
Okay, so what I would say to that is, first of all, when they were planning this, nobody even knew what Omicron was, right?
Right.
I mean, we've become cognizant of Omicron in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give them that. I'm trying not to be too critical here, which is something that I usually don't do, but I'm trying not to be too critical here, not to be too hard on the organizers, Hockey Canada and the IHF, because when they were planning this, like 3 days before the tournament started, they thought they were gonna have full capacity, full houses, and everybody was going to be able to eat their popcorn and drink their beer, and they were going to make all their money doing that, and that came to a screeching halt. So when they were planning this, I think they were planning this around the Delta variant and what the challenges that presented. And they probably thought, this is probably good enough. I know that, like, I was talking to the father of one of the Canadian players last night, and he said, they're like, the parents haven't seen their kids. Like they weren't able to see their kids. They were taking separate elevators. They were on their own floors. They weren't going anywhere. They were basically isolating on their own floors and eating and everything. So they weren't out and about among the hotel, but there's a lot of people there, so it could happen, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give them a bit of a pass on that one. But to me, the way I think of it is, let's say, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, 10 months ago, they came to us and said, okay, Dylan and Ken, you have to plan the World Juniors.
Right.
I got to think that one of the first things we would have talked about was,
what happens?
We need to have a bubble. No, we need to have a bubble, regardless, because there's so much we don't know right now, and we don't know if there's going to be an outbreak. We don't know where we're going. So let's be safe. Yeah, let's be safe and do the bubble like we did last year. Right. When there were like very few positive cases, where it didn't end up hijacking the entire event. So you say, so and this is not like a bubble like the NHL had to be in for months and months, right? No, like they showed up at the kids in Canada showed up at training camp, December 8th? Yeah. December 8th. and you're going until, what if you would have been going until January 5th, January 6th, you would have been leaving? That's a month. That's doable.
Right.
That's really doable. So where I do find fault is in the fact that they didn't just look at that, even when it was just the Delta variant and nobody even had any idea what Omicron was, and we're months away from finding out. I just wonder why you wouldn't have just sat there and said, let's be safe with this. Let's spend the extra money because it costs a lot more.
Yeah.
And it does.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's in Canada. Hockey Canada has a lot of money. The IHF has a lot of money. This is an event that generates a lot of revenue.
Right.
So let's use that revenue, because we ain't giving it to the players. That's another little hobby horse that I have. But so let's make sure that we err on the side of caution here. And that, you know, I mean, Luke Tardif of the IHF and Hockey Canada, it's been radio silent so far. I don't know if they have anything planned in the next little while to talk about this, but that would be my first question to them is, you know, why did you not consider a bubble regardless of what we didn't see coming?
Yeah. The one thing that you could plan for in this pandemic is
nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And so it just seems like with all of the changes that have had to be made, we've now had this for 2 years. It seems surprising to me that in 2 years of curveballs, you know, somebody hasn't just thought like, look, I'll tell you, it didn't take very many slap shots, you know, to the ribs here before goalies' chest protectors started coming around.
Right.
Somebody turned around and said, hey, you know what? That might happen.
Yeah.
Maybe I should protect
Lots
that
of times,
area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do. It does come as a surprise to me. Now, you winked at something just now.
I winked?
Roll back the clip.
Okay.
You alluded to something.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Just recently.
Right.
Which was Hockey Canada has not made an official announcement that I've seen as of now in our recording.
Oh, what do you mean? That it's canceled? Or
yeah, they said that like
no, the IHF has come out and said it's done. It's done.
Okay.
They've said it. It's done. It's like Tiger Williams said. It's done like dinner. It's over. It's done.
Right.
I can see a case where they maybe try and revive it this summer.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
What do you do with? I guess you just use the same rosters, even though some of these players will have turned 20. I mean,
oh, that'd just be terrible. To have.
But I mean, like, even if you turn 20 between January 1st and January 5th, you can still play in the World Juniors. It's your age before January 1st of that year. So if you're calling it the 2022 World Juniors, then I guess you still go with guys who were 20 and under as of and like, you can't rebuild the team or anything like that. I guess you'd probably have to say, yeah, you got to go with the same rosters that you showed up with for the tournament. I would not be surprised if they don't try to get this thing played this summer. Because I really believe, and you know, this epidemiologist, infectious disease specialist that I'm talking to a lot, it's first of all, the first thing he said was a bubble, a tight sealed bubble was a no-brainer. Yeah. No-brainer. Should have done it. Can't understand why they didn't do it. Yeah. Test the living crap out of everybody for the first 7 days.
I think the tests are actually done through the nose.
Yes. Test the living snot out of everybody for the first 7 days.
Fecal tests for the COVID.
And so you test them like crazy for the first 7 days. You keep them in a bubble, you know, and then you've got it contained and you're good, right? Yeah. So that was the first thing he said. Second thing he said was, this one is going to be, the numbers are really going to spike and then they're going to go down fairly quickly. It seems that's what we're expecting. Yeah. So like, it wouldn't be a huge shock to see that, you know, that Omicron isn't that prevalent by, say, the spring. Yeah. You know, so then you go into the summer and you're back to something where you can maybe put this back on. And I got to think there's got to be some kind of willingness or need to, you know, to try and get this thing done. Yeah. I don't know.
So before we get off the World Junior talk, I'm going to ask you to do something that I know you hate doing so much, which is to speculate. And I want you to speculate as to the upcoming draft, because it's the World Juniors is obviously a very important tournament when it comes to the draft.
Yeah.
I don't think that it makes opinions, but I think that it cements opinions. So if you're leaning towards one player,
Yep.
then it might cement that opinion towards that player. And if or maybe it does cause you to look at somebody else. But for an actual, expert, not somebody like me, I think that it cements opinions, and it's important to see these players play on the big stage with the best in the world of their age group, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Do you think if the World Juniors is canceled, what do you think the ramifications are of the upcoming draft?
I don't think they're huge. First of all, because they basically had no OHL season last year, and a bastardized version of WHL and OHL seasons last year, or QMJHL seasons last year, and they still managed to pull it off. From what I've been able to gather in the scouts that I've talked to is the World Junior is used as a scouting tool in as much as they're less concerned with a bad performance than they are enamored with a good one.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if a guy comes out in his draft year or and just blows the doors off of everybody, that's they put a lot of stock in that. But if a guy comes in and he's really kind of not making it happen, they don't really I don't think they hold that against him as much.
Yeah.
Because they've seen him play 100 times other than the World Juniors, right? Yeah. They've seen him play in the case of the kids in Canada, they've seen them play in major junior hockey against their peers, hundreds of times. And in the case of Europe, they're playing against men half the time, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
so you're saying you think it's going to be less and less a 19-year-old tournament as we move forward?
Well, it seems to be that way because what's happening is a lot of these kids, by the time they get to this tournament, they've already played in a bunch of international tournaments, great big tournaments. They're better and better coached and trained and in better shape and more talented than they've ever been at a younger age.
Yeah.
So you are seeing a lot of these younger guys playing in these tournaments. Right. And so maybe now it's, that narrative isn't quite what it was at one time. I mean, look at Canada, played 2 games. Their player of the game in game 1 was Owen Power, who was just drafted this year as an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
And their player of the game in game 2 was Connor Bedard, who's 16.
Right.
So, I mean, there were some 19-year-olds who were doing some really good things. Cole Perfetti, one of them.
Yeah.
But Mason McTavish too, another guy that just got drafted this year.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of the 19-year-olds, that's where I really feel for the kids in this tournament, especially the 2002s who maybe this was their only chance to play.
Yeah.
And now doesn't look so good.
I think you're exactly right. I think about Cole Caulfield's performance in the World Juniors last year being very, underwhelming to say the least, but that didn't really change anybody's opinion on him because they'd seen him put up, bonkers numbers everywhere else.
Mario Lemieux got benched. He did.
Yeah.
Dave King benched him.
Right.
Of course, Dave King is a guy that, his idea of a perfect game is a nothing game with nobody watching.
Right.
So that's a Dave King thing, but he got benched.
Right.
Joe Thornton didn't do much. There's a lot of guys who had, as draft eligibles, and I mean, if you want to take it back a bit, I mean, Connor McDavid as a 16-year-old had 4 points.
You mentioned that in your writing.
Connor Bedard had 4 points last night.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Connor Bedard might go down as the most goals per game of anyone played in the World Juniors.
2.5.
Yeah,
2.5
per the 2 games.
Yeah, but he's going to play, and he's going to play next year, and he's going to get a whole whack load of them next year too.
Yeah. It was whatever. He was a real treat to watch for the little bit that we got to watch him. Let's pivot a little bit to the news that the OHL dropped today. And I want you to tell me how you feel about the Logan Mailloux news that dropped today.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a rather open-ended question, Dylan. Thank you for leaving me hanging like that, out to dry. No, I as
what are sidekicks there for?
So yeah, you will be forever known. Now, like when I go to like. If we're ever at a dinner party, which I don't think we ever will be, but we might.
Yeah.
I'll say, this is my sidekick, Dylan. Anyways, as a lot of people may have found out that Logan Mailloux was reinstated, or it was announced that he was reinstated today, and he'll play January 1st.
Yeah.
In London, the London Knights game against Erie, I think. So yeah, this is a real polarizing subject. And I'm I feel like I'm a duck, paddling ferociously underwater and trying to be, composed above the water. Cause I'm just crapping my pants, worried about saying something stupid here, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's such a hot button issue.
It really is.
And it's so supercharged and there's so many differing opinions here.
Yeah.
Some people think the kid got screwed and everybody went way overboard, and there will be other people who will forever think that it's a joke that he only got what he's ended up getting. Yeah. So and I get that. I don't have the sensibilities that a lot of other people have around this thing. So I'm going to try my best. And I'm going to try not to screw it up. So he's back. They said, the OHL said that he was eligible to be reinstated on January 1st.
Right.
It was an indefinite suspension. He was eligible to be reinstated January 1st, which he obviously has applied to do and has received the permission to do.
Yeah.
Did the OHL drop this at a time when there was a lot of other stuff going on? Like a lot of people compared this to like the Friday at 5 p.m. news drop, hoping to slide under the radar.
Yeah.
Not sure this one does. I'm not sure you could drop this news anytime and have it slide under the radar.
Yeah.
People are going to be talking about it, and they're going to have a lot of opinions about it. Personally, the kid did what he did. It was a heinous thing. But I think since that time, you could argue that he's comported himself in a pretty good way.
Yeah.
He's been rightly dragged through the court of public opinion, as he should have been.
Yeah.
He's apologized. He asked not to be drafted.
Yeah.
He's done the work, so we're told.
Yeah.
And I have no reason to believe he hasn't.
Yeah.
How long? I guess the question then is, how long does someone have to pay for something like that? How long?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. From my perspective, 26 games and what he's gone through sounds about right.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I appreciate that other people might think that's outrageously soft and that he should have to pay a far bigger price. But let's remember, he didn't ask to be drafted. Yeah. In fact, he asked not to be drafted.
Yeah.
So like part of me wants to kind of say, well, you know what? If you want to be angry, maybe not direct your anger so much at Logan Mailloux, but then you come back and say, well, yeah, you do, because he actually did it.
Yeah.
And he did this terrible thing.
Yeah.
And I get that. But I guess the question is what's your tolerance level for having someone who's done something like that and shown the contrition and paid a price, whether it's a big enough price or too big or too small or just right, is probably a matter of perspective. Like I said, I think it's time. Yeah. I think he's done the work. He's sat out. He couldn't go to Canadians training camp this year or their rookie camp. I'm okay with it. And I hope that that's not construed into something that means that I condone what he did, or I want to be soft on what he did, or I'm out of touch or whatever. That's where I'm coming from, and it's from a place of good intention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my story.
I think situations like this essentially they test our mettle in terms of what we believe. And the trouble with any conversation about this is that it reaches into a far, far more significant topic. Like, from the very basics of it, it is, do you believe in a reformative or a punitive justice system?
Mm-hmm.
And so for myself, I'm strongly on the side of reformative justice system. But the trouble with being on the side of reformative justice system is that what do you then do? And I'm not comparing him to Logan Mailloux. This is not, they're apples and oranges. But what do you do with the Paul Bernardos? You know, that by all accounts cannot be reformed.
Right.
And so what happens here is it, when a crime is done and you know, maybe you can't empathize, but you can sympathize with just how awful this is for the victim.
Right.
It becomes difficult to say what or how or whatever somebody should be punished when you have to live with the knowledge that this person, Logan Mailloux, I'm not saying he is, I'm not saying he ever will be, but could turn out to be the best advocate in the world that the world has ever known against these sorts of things, and say, look at what a dirtbag I was.
Yeah.
You know, mean it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it still might never make the victim be okay.
It might
Their
not,
life
and
might never improve no matter what happens.
it might not. And I would hope, and I have no idea, but I would hope that before the OHL lifted this guy's suspension, they talked to that person.
Yeah.
I would hope.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they did.
Yeah.
I hope they did.
Yeah.
I hope they at least checked in and said, look, here's what we're thinking of doing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this?
And that's exactly correct, because at its root, it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what Logan thinks.
Yeah.
You know, at its root, you have a victim who suffered a very serious trauma at his hands. And that's what the problem is. So it's difficult. I believe in a reformative justice system. I believe that he can be reformed. I also just think that you never know anybody's heart. You know, I don't know, after Jeff Molson's letter, I don't know what Jeff Molson went home and thought to himself. He might be the biggest misogynist in the world. I don't know that.
Yeah.
All I know is the actions that I see, which some are, better than nothing, I guess you could say, but
that's the good thing to say about them.
That's the good thing, right? Yeah. But
yeah.
my point is that I will never know. All I will ever know is what I can see with my own eyes. And so I guess my only thought is just, I hope Mailloux's ready. And I hope that, I wish him, in the truest sense of the term, I wish him all the best.
Right.
And I wish him to,
right.
Sometimes I've done things I'm not proud of, never to that extent.
That beard is one of them. Oh, and you burn.
Boy, I was very proud of this beard until just now, but okay. What was that line from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? I like me, and my wife likes me, and my kids like me. And so you may, whatever John Candy said. John Candy, by the way, also from our neighborhood. Went to school at Neil McNeil.
Yeah, went to Neil McNeil. Yeah.
Which is at Vic Park and Danforth.
Right. For those of you who live in Toronto, and for those of you who aren't from the center of the universe.
The center of the hockey
That's the
universe.
east end of Toronto.
Yeah. You know how many Torontonians it takes to screw in a light bulb, don't you?
No.
One, and the rest of Canada revolves around them.
Nice.
My dad used to tell that one all the time.
Why did the Torontonian cross the road?
Why?
To avoid an acquaintance. Doesn't that like sum up Toronto like more than anything else? Anyways,
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Man, did we ever get on it? Did we ever go off the rails quickly?
Yeah. Bringing it all back, and before we change subjects, I just say, we can never know his heart, and we can debate ad nauseum as to what is punishment and what is fair and what is just, and why does one person drive drunk and they get their license suspended, and then the next person drives drunk but happens to kill somebody, and they get put in jail when they, in essence, committed the exact same crime. There was just some luck of the draw involved with the fact that, why is attempted murder less than murder when it's like
when the intent is there?
The intent was murder. There's so like this debate, and I think that what makes us so angry about Mailloux is that it's so much deeper, and it just. But at the end of the day, if you just look at it as a personal, individual, case-by-case basis, all I can say is I wish him the best.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to see how crowds react to him, in opposing arenas, and how other players react to him.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
Speaking of arenas, there are games in NHL arenas.
Some of them,
yes. Yep. And there appears to be a taxi squad that will be implemented.
Right.
So my first thought is, and I could be getting this wrong, but I think I'm getting this right. According to Elliot Friedman, the Washington Capitals had asked for cap relief for their COVID issues.
Right.
And after that, the Colorado Avalanche, who was having COVID issues at the time, this is weeks later, was given the option as to whether they were to play or not. And they opted to play. The Capitals were PO'd because they weren't given that option. And now it seems that we're going to taxi squads. So I guess my thought and my question to you is there a way to make Washington whole on this? And other teams that we don't know of that asked for cap relief in this situation, and what will be the takeaway for this NHL season?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say that we already talked about there was no statement or anything. Actually, I believe there's a news conference going on right now with Tom Rennie, Scott Smith, and Luke Tardif, the IHF and the Hockey Canada about the cancellation of the World Juniors. So,
do you want to pause and then pick up after watching it?
I wouldn't mind.
All right. Yeah. We are on a pause.
Okay.
Okay, folks, we'll be back after these messages. All right, so we're back. Ken and I just got off the press conference about the World Juniors. Ken, your thoughts?
Well, the big takeaway for me was that, the IIHF and Hockey Canada and the organizers of all of these tournaments are committed to at least giving it a go. It sounds like in June that they're going to try and get the World Juniors done. They're going to try and get the World Under-18 Women's done. And, there were 4 other tournaments that were canceled, right? Like they were lower level world championships. Like it was one division 1A and 1B world men's and, some of the lower divisions. And they're actually committing to try to get those ones played as well. So I think that's the big takeaway here is that there is a level of commitment that exists to get these tournaments in. And I mean, I talked to Fran Ryder with the Ontario Women's Hockey Association the other day about the under-18 women's that was supposed to be in Sweden and got canceled because of the fact that it conflicted with the Swedish league if they wanted to move it to later months. Fran Ryder basically told me, look, we're ready. We can do this. Mm-hmm. So I would not be the least bit surprised if the Ontario women or the World Women's Under-18 goes ahead and is played somewhere in Ontario.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of logistics to work through, a lot of stuff to work through in terms of the COVID, variant or the Omicron variant and all those things. But at least they're not giving up, and it looks like there's a willingness and a desire and a motivation to get these things done a little later in the year.
Yeah.
which will give us stuff to talk about in June. It'll be great.
Yeah, well, hockey this summer is actually fantastic.
Yeah, we're all used to it now, right?
Yeah. I think the big takeaway that I had from that press conference was the use of language that maybe I jumped the gun a little quickly, making assumptions. But what was being said was that the calling it a cancellation. When you cancel something, people attempt to help with it. And when you postpone something, people make the assumption that everything's okay.
Yeah.
And you have it in hand.
Yeah.
And so even just what you're talking about, the fact that the Women's Ontario Hockey League has stepped up in this manner is largely in response to the fact that it was a cancellation.
It's totally in response to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, completely. I mean, they saw this as an event that needs to be played because it wasn't played last year either.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they're, when I talked to Fran Ryder about this, and I don't know if people know who Fran Ryder is, but she is a women's hockey icon. I believe she'll be in the Hockey Hall of Fame someday.
Really?
As a builder. Yeah. She's built the game. Like the Ontario Women's Hockey Association, which she runs, basically, started the whole women's worlds with a tournament in 1987. And then it springboarded there from what we see now.
Yeah.
So when she talks, there's some gravitas to it, right?
Yeah,
like there's some weight to it. Right. So, I just think that, that they think that this needs to be played for the age group and for the players involved. And I mean, her idea was, or her feeling was, we'll do it. If someone else wants to do it and it can be done somewhere else, that's great. We're all on board with that too. But you know what? We're prepared to step up here and make this thing happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, are there many places in the world that have as many rinks and good rinks per capita as Ontario does?
No, I mean, it's got the infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially if it's in the summer or later.
Yeah.
I mean, you could use, the last time it was here, the under 18 was here is 2016, 2017, something like that. Yeah. It was in St. Catharines.
Yeah.
Right. So why would you not be able to use that rink in the summer? I mean, the Niagara Ice Dogs won't be playing there.
No, I mean, when I went to the Roger Nelson's hockey camp, which was out in Lindsay, Ontario, at the university there. Yeah. And we stayed in the dorms, which were fantastic, and played at the rink, which was a fantastic rink. And so if you're looking for a bubble situation and you don't have, universities doing in-class stuff, is that not your perfect situation?
Yeah. I mean, you can find a way. I mean, hopefully we won't be having to bubble people by then.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah.
So it's good news. It's not great news today, but it's good news to hear that there's a willingness to kind of get this done.
Yeah.
And get it done right.
Yeah. So let's finish off with some NHL talk.
Right on.
We were just getting into that about the taxi squads and I was asking you if there's a way that that teams like Washington that were not given cap relief from COVID outbreaks could be made whole, and the overall integrity of the league this year.
Well, yeah, I mean, I doubt it. I mean, they've played those games. They've gone through it. I'm not sure you can put that genie back in the bottle. But, I mean, I look at the way the NHL is going right now. We're up to 80 canceled or postponed games, I think.
Yeah. With
probably more on the way. I mean, can this season, can the 2021-22 season get pulled off, and without its integrity being compromised? Well, I would argue that it's already been compromised.
Yeah, it's already compromised. Just how much?
Last night, Samuel Montembeault, played against Maxime Legacy.
I will not have anything bad said about Samuel Montembeault. He had
Really?
a fantastic night last night.
He was wonderful. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're right. Rafael Harvey Pinard, scored his first NHL goal. Like, as much as there's feel good storylines there,
All kinds of them. Sean Day. Sean Day is a wonderful story.
Yeah,
He was
which you wrote about.
He was an exceptional player.
Yeah.
In 2013, I think. I'm going to say 2013-14. Not so exceptional after that.
Yeah.
Was let go of by the Rangers, got drafted by the Rangers, let go, signed with Tampa as a free agent.
Yeah.
And basically got into an NHL game because of COVID.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were so ravaged by it.
Yeah.
And good for him. That's a wonderful story, but he's probably not playing in the NHL. Rafael Harvey Pinard probably is not playing in the NHL. Like, I was going through it last night and I was just looking at the rosters and all of the guys that I've never even heard of before.
Yeah.
Like, never even heard of before.
Yeah.
And so, you could argue that the season's been compromised already.
Yeah.
I get it. I get why they need to play these games. I get why they want to play these games. I get why they have to play these games.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to give them a bit of a pass there, but if the games start getting canceled more and more, we've already got 80 to make up. I just wonder if an 82 game season is going to be in the cards this year. I have no doubt that the Stanley Cup will be awarded and that there should be no asterisks beside it. Yeah. I think if you're good enough to win the Stanley Cup and you get through all of that, you win it, and you win it on whatever terms that are put in front of you. Yeah. You deserve it.
Yeah.
However, I just don't think this season's going to be, a nice and tidy one. I think it might get uglier before it gets better.
Yeah.
By the time the playoffs come, again, I'm hoping, and from what I've been told, we may have a lot of this in the rearview mirror by then.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a matter of not being able to play because of that. I just wonder if they're going to run out of runway here with games being postponed and having to reschedule them, and they just start to pile up after a while. And I wonder if we're going to be able to get see this thing through in the way that the NHL would have envisioned. I mean, they're already canceling games, a lot of games in Canada, because you can't have people in the building. Yeah. Right. And so, you're looking at a lot of work to do.
I have a good friend of mine who is a strength and conditioning coach. He works with a lot of Toronto FC guys. His name is Asa Tam. He's in Richmond Hill here in Toronto, and they've got a clinic. Works with a lot of NCAA hockey players and just, high level athletes. But the thing that he said to me once that's always stuck out in my mind is he said that hockey is so high impact on the body that if he were that ideally you would have 2 months off of playing hockey for every month that you have on.
Yeah.
So his assertion was essentially that the off season already in hockey is a joke. And then we're going to have 3 shortened off seasons in a row. If, like you said, if we run out of runway.
Yeah. I mean, what did Sheldon Keefe say? He said something about how the Leafs sort of just got together as a group, as a bigger group yesterday. And he said that some of the guys were complaining that they felt worse than they did after the first day of training camp.
Right.
So, so that gives you an idea of what even a short layoff can do to a team and to a player's body as he detrains, through that period. Right. So, I like I said, I would argue that the season's already been compromised. I mean, I don't think you're going to find a New York Islanders fan who doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Their season got hijacked. Their season, they're basically down the crapper.
Yeah.
Because of this, and this was before a lot of the new protocols came into place and a lot of the heightened sort of awareness came around all of this. They had to play through a lot of that and they lost most of those games.
Yeah.
Like badly. And now, they're left to pick up the pieces and to try and play catch up in a season where it's going to be impossible to do so. So the New York Islanders probably would argue, a team that has been in the Eastern Conference final, whatever it was last year, but in the Final Four the last 2 years, could certainly make the argument that their season got just shit canned, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
by the coronavirus. And so when you put it in that perspective, I'm not sure how you can think that the season hasn't been compromised already.
Yeah. Going on to the other storyline about, like we were talking about, players getting their chance in the NHL. Do you think, because I've been reading about the idea that, that people have been under-evaluated and may stick around. Do you think that that's a possibility? Do you think that there's a lot of, or a significant amount of players that will stick around after things start to normalize?
Not a significant number, because when things normalize, they won't have a place on the roster.
Yeah.
Because the only reason why they're on the roster is they're cheap and they need them right now, right? Yeah. Once those circumstances change, those guys will go back to where they were playing before, and for the most part. But I mean, you could see a guy, and maybe it's not even with the team that he plays for.
Yeah.
Maybe he does really well and another team takes notice of him. And then when he goes on waivers, they pick him up. Or, he might be a Group 6 free agent this summer who's unrestricted because he hasn't played enough games in the NHL, and another team picks him up. So, yeah, I do see the opportunity. I mean, when the NFL had replacement players, there were some players who got a career because of that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do see a possibility of that happening. I don't see it happening en masse. I don't see a bunch of these guys that I've never heard of end up being regulars in the NHL once all the dust settles.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting what a guy can do. And the other thing is that I've noticed with minor leaguers, guys that are truly career minor leaguers, who are, just not good enough to play in the NHL, but good enough to have a decent pro career either in North America or Europe, is they come up and for a week or two, they look like they're great. Yeah. And then they regress to the mean, as you guys say, right?
Yeah. Pocket protector.
Yeah.
Pencil pushing nerd.
Yeah, those guys. Yeah. They regress to the mean and they become what they are.
What they always were.
And you see it with expansion all the time, right? Like these, not anymore because good players get picked in expansion drafts now. But prior to the previous expansions, you'd always see these guys going, oh yeah, well, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I'm going to play for this team and I'm going to prove that I belong in the NHL. And then they pretty much prove that they don't in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So no, I can see maybe 1, 2, or 3 players maybe getting an opportunity out of this. Maybe not even with the team they're playing with right now.
Yeah.
But to say that, a lot of these guys are going to be now NHL players, I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even Carlson, when his first year on the Golden Knights, he scored 40 goals and shot at like a 40% shooting percentage, where like one of the tops in the league is Matthews shooting at a career like 15% or 14%, which is astronomical. League average being closer to around 8%.
Right.
So, those that thought that Carlson was always a 40 goal scorer and always would be a 40 goal scorer, maybe he was definitely undervalued in his previous team.
Yes.
But there was nothing to suggest that he was going to be putting up 40 goals a year every year.
Yeah, right. And there's a lot of guys you see, like it just was never going to work out there.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what's going to happen with Louis DeBrusk.
Yeah.
Once he does inevitably get traded or moved or whatever happens. Jake DeBrusk, Louis DeBrusk. Yeah, Jake DeBrusk. It took me a second, yeah. Jake DeBrusk.
Yeah.
I mean, once he gets moved or whatever, he may end up going somewhere and being a really good player.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't going to happen in Boston.
Yeah.
And you see that. It just isn't happening because the opportunity's not there or whatever, and they go somewhere else and they turn out okay. But it just was never going to happen in that place.
Boston basically needs a cup this year.
Yeah, well, they got to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that with the core the way that it is, Boston basically needs a cup this year, maybe next year.
Yeah.
And they can't wait on somebody to sort themselves out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to close off with some wild speculation?
Oh, I don't know. Don't ever say that there's too many teams in the World Junior.
Don't say that.
Don't ever say that. You'll get killed on Twitter.
Oh, I didn't say that.
I know. I said it.
Oh,
and I've been getting hammered today.
Yeah.
Oh, look at those Austrian kids. I almost said Australian kids. What's the difference? Austrian kids. They were so happy when they scored last night. And oh man, to me, this tournament, the World Juniors.
Ken, is this your first time getting killed on Twitter?
No, no, it happens very regularly.
Come on.
Yeah. But Twitter's not a real place, right? You know that, right? Like, it's not a real place. But anyways, I'll just talk a bit about this. I'll get on the soapbox here a little bit.
Please.
I think that the World Juniors should go back to being an 8-team tournament.
Yeah.
Where you place a round robin. Each team plays 7 games.
Yeah.
Against everybody. And the first place team at the end gets the gold medal. The second place team gets the silver medal. The third place team gets the bronze medal. Okay?
Okay.
That's the way it used to be.
Yeah.
That's the way it used to be. And then I think it was in 95, somewhere around there, after Red Deer, they changed it to what it is now.
Yeah.
Where you're in a pool and you play these meaningless games for a while and you finish in the top 4 and then you go to the quarterfinal. Makes for a lot of crappy games. But imagine how great the games would be if Canada had to play all of Sweden, Finland, Czechs, Russians, USA, and then you've got your Germanys and Switzerlands or whatever as the other 2 teams. Slovakia kind of moves in and out of the top 6, whatever. I think that would make for a way more exciting tournament, a way more compelling tournament, way better games.
Yeah.
And you'd still have the same number of games. You have an 8-team tournament where there's 17, you play 7 games. That's a total of 28 games. That's how many they play now. You're not losing any games. You're not losing any revenues. Like, to me, and then you end up having, your Austrias, your Belaruses, your Latvias, your Denmarks, and that playing where they are more suited to be playing, and then moving up. And, and then moving down and then maybe moving back up because you're still going to have relegation. And these teams, maybe one of those years, maybe maybe the Slovaks and the Czechs are having a down year and maybe they're the ones that get relegated and you stay if you're Austria or Germany or, all of those other countries that seem to move up and down from A to B.
So I don't have the solution.
I do. I just gave it to you.
Okay. Well, now I have the solution, but I didn't have the solution when I was formulating this thought in my head. But I'll tell you, last night I started the World Junior game live. And then after the first period, I started a staggered start with the Montreal Canadiens game.
Right.
And let me tell you, after 2 periods of the World Juniors game, I was done with it. It just... Yeah, okay. That was nice when they scored on
to make it 11-2.
Boneheaded goalie mistake.
Yeah.
I've seen in my life. As soon as he skated out, I thought he's just screwing around now. Like at some point, he's just like, okay. You want an example? A couple mornings ago, I was playing with some guys, and I thought to myself, I'm going to make a stacked pads. It wasn't great level hockey, and I thought I'm gonna try to go a little old school and try to stack a few pads and see what kind of saves I can make. But that's what you do, and so the fact that he did that in it's not technically professional, but a tournament that is the level and prestige of the World Juniors, it suggests that he's bored. He's bored out of his skull that he made that mistake. I've said it. I have goaltending students. I commented this on your Twitter. In support of you.
Yeah.
I have goaltending students. I've got one in particular. He's 12. He's pretty good. He's a AA 12-year-old. But his dad is obsessed with making a play against 16-year-olds. And
he's playing AA, not AAA.
Not AAA. And wants his kid to play against and train with the 16-year-old goalies. But what winds up happening is that he just winds up having to cheat and do all kinds of stuff in a drill to try to make the save, and it hurts him.
Yeah.
And we finally let him do it because the dad was insistent. But I kept on saying to the dad, you don't learn how to box by getting into a ring with prime George Foreman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like you could have all the fundamentals, but if you're 12 and it's like your first time really in a ring, it doesn't matter where you've got your hands, it doesn't matter your footwork. He's going to catch you and he's going to kill you.
Yeah.
And you learn nothing. You just got knocked out.
See, and to me, you know, Dave Cameron said it last night. He said, I don't know that a game like this really helps either team.
No.
You know, and to me, you know, I've gotten a lot of blowback from people saying, oh yeah, well, you grow the game and how are these teams supposed to get better? Well, you get better at home.
Yeah.
It starts at home. It starts in the domestic league and the program you have in place.
Yeah.
Always has, always will.
Yeah.
I would argue that Germany hasn't gotten better because they got their asses kicked a bunch of times by Canada and other teams in the World Juniors. They got it because they have a really good domestic league that has a place to play for a lot of ex-NHL players, a lot of elite players, and a lot of those guys end up staying and coaching there.
Yeah.
And then they build it up from the youth levels, and that's where your Leon Draisaitl's and your Morris Seiders and guys like that are coming up and playing. You know, you look at a guy like Lucas Kasper for Austria. Okay, their best player without a doubt will be a first round pick. Well, he's playing hockey in Sweden. Right. He's playing junior hockey in Sweden. He's not playing it back home. Yeah. So, I mean, that's where you get these players and then they rise up and they make your program better. And then you're more successful on the international stage.
Exactly.
I really don't believe it. And people are going to disagree, but I just don't think it helps countries to get their asses kicked at the World Juniors and constantly have that happen. You've got to build it at home. You got to have the infrastructure. You got to have the arenas. You got to throw money at it. You've got to have coaching. And that's how you get better. It's not by going to the World Juniors once every couple of years and being happy because you scored one goal or two goals.
Yeah.
No. And it doesn't make for a good tournament.
Yeah. Do you want a quick anecdote to that level?
Whatever. I guess so.
There was I won't mention the country that they were from, but there was a development program from a certain country that is trying to grow their hockey program.
Yeah.
And they came here to Toronto to try with, I think they were all 14 to 16. Anyways, they came with a team that was supposed to be kind of their future Olympic team, right? And a friend of mine that I was playing with in beer league was the skills coach for that team. And the coach that had come over from that country said to him, apparently, I'm getting it from this friend, so it's secondhand, said to him, so what do you think? Do you think that these guys will have a chance to compete in, the U16s and then the U18s and so on and so forth? And he said to the guy, I don't think that they have a chance to compete in my beer league. And wow. And a week later, because they were renting a space at the arena that we were playing at, the whole shebang. A week later, their logo was off the door.
Oh, I think I know what team you're talking about too. Yeah.
So, because he told me that, and then the timing lined up, and then a week after he tells me that the logo's off the door, and I'm like, geez, you're not lying? I kind of assumed you were just lying. Because all guys just lie in change rooms, right? That's what we do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Hey, what was this speculation thing you wanted to...
Okay, here we go. Wild speculation time.
I hope people are still hanging in with us. This is a marathon. My ass is killing me right now on this chair.
This is longer than you think because we
I just have to move for a second here. Okay, there we go. All right, good.
I'm the one that's on the camera now anyways, okay. So people just saw my reaction to your moving.
Okay.
All right, last question. With taxi squads, obviously there are going to need to be rush contracts signed for the NHL with COVID ravaging the NHL and AHL. Do you think we see any veterans all of a sudden join back into the ranks that have never officially retired? And if so, who?
Well, somebody just did in Tampa. Defenseman. Come on.
I didn't see the news.
Man. He's like taking exercise physiology at the University of Minnesota. Come on. Okay, well, I got to look it up now. It might happen. Yeah. But what we might see is they'll take a bunch of guys from the American League, and these guys will all end up Jason Garrison. Garrison. Yes. I remember Jason Garrison. Yeah, he's now on a PTO with Tampa's AHL team.
Right.
Right. And like he hasn't played and he's taken apparently he's taken exercise physiology at the University of Minnesota or something.
Yeah.
And so like, will that result in him playing in the NHL? No, but it might result in him playing in the American Hockey League because the American Hockey League is going to be pillaged. Right. Like, and it's not what it's not their integrity's been compromised just like it was last year.
Right.
Because last year you had taxi squads. So conceivably the best 5 or 6 players for every team were gone.
Yeah.
Right. And you had a lot of junior guys playing and that.
Yeah.
So that may happen again this year.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to see too many guys get signed and rushed in or whatever. I think what you'll see guys that they already have who are cheap and fall under this under $1 million category. They'll be the ones that take the spots. And then you'll have guys on PTOs like Jason Garrison in the American League. So you may end up getting guys that, Bobby Ryan's looking for a place to play right now. He was going to play in Malmo, I think, or something.
Right.
And he was going to play in the Spangler Cup. And, Devin Dubnyk was going to play he might play in the Olympics now if they still have it. But so you may see stuff like that happen. Yeah.
Yeah. The names I was looking for were like Eric Stahl and Jaromir Jagr and, see if those guys.
Isn't Jagr still playing?
He is still playing in the Czech League, which is, why I wondered if he'd be an enticing guy to just bring over for your taxi squad.
Wow. Would he play on a taxi squad? I don't think he'd come over and say, I'll sit on a taxi squad. I'm like one of the greatest players of all time, but I'll sit here and practice with you guys. No, I think he'd want to play.
If he thinks he's got a chance
and then it's
reach
like
a scoring milestone.
Yeah, but I'm not sure the NHL's slow enough to accommodate him anymore. I think what you'll see is guys will take this opportunity and maybe take another crack at the American League while these other guys are being called up.
Yeah.
So, be interesting. But anyways, Jason Garrison, I'm glad I remembered him. Man, that would have been bugging me all night.
I can attest that you did not manage to actually look it up on your phone, and
I didn't.
You remembered it.
It's great that I'm such a Luddite that I couldn't do that quickly enough, and I just had to rely on my own, wherewithal.
Fly by the seat of your pants here.
Correctamundo.
Yes.
Yep.
Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Oh my goodness. Well, Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes.
I hope you keep coming back. We're trying our best here. We're trying to put something together that's a thought-provoking and entertaining podcast. Let us know what you think. Yeah. Go to kencampbell.substack.com for this podcast and for a lot of other stuff. And we're trying to make a go of it here. So keep listening, please.